From very early time, the human being has inwardly visualized a relationship with the universe, which up to now he has never been able to make rational or possible. The idea of being totally isolated on a small planet, moving through space, has always been a great frustration upon the human psychic life. The individual, from a point of isolation, is always reaching out toward communion, toward contact, toward understanding, and toward those around him as means of his own escape. Today we see this great psychic pressure in man leading him forward toward contact with other parts of his solar system. Actually, these pressures are producing at this time only a physical adventure. They are causing man to hope or desire or feel that it is necessary for him to begin the active exploration of space. This exploration symbolism, however, deals with his own internal. And as we go back for at least 4,000 or 5,000 years, we observe that certain symbolism has arisen within man relating to this future exploration. The question we must all ask, of course, is this symbolism valid?
It says, "Great show last night, Bill. I'm ordering the book today. Please reserve me a copy. I've wanted to tell this story for the past 15 years. I was a human factors engineer at Grumman Aerospace Corporation, which, as you know, built the lunar module. I was assigned at one point to creating a videotape that would help employees and NASA understand procedures in the cold flow facility at Bethpage, Long Island, which was the test facility for all LM cryogenic systems, liquid helium, etc. After a month of fumbling around, it became apparent to me that no one knew what was going on except for isolated ritualistic procedures that didn't seem to tie together. I was shattered and confused. During the Apollo 11 touchdown, I remember standing in Plant 5 in Bethpage, where the 3 Apollo astronauts died, with the entire staff of lunar module engineers watching the NASA feed. Or was it from dreamland? When the lunar module landed, we turned to each other mystified, shook our heads, and said, "I don't believe it. How did they do that?" To this day, I don't believe anyone has ever landed on the moon. The laser reflector mirrors could easily have been positioned onto the surface by remote control from the command module with small rockets. Curious, too, how astronaut radio transmissions still use narrow bandwidth, single sideband instead of hi-fi FM, and low-resolution TV images instead of high-quality video. Easier to mask imperfections? Feel free to quote me on this if you find it interesting. And I did.
1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. 5, 6.
The moon has always fascinated mankind and has seemed to exercise an extraordinary influence over this very psychic, intuiting part of our natures. We have associated it with imagination. We have recognized from very ancient periods that the presence of the moon and its relation to the earth, these have affected the earth strongly. Thus, at this time, with our minds on moon travel, it might be interesting to go back and see what the intuitive consciousness of man has thought about this, or has discovered within itself about this kind of an adventure.
Next, NASA spent 3.5 months setting up another lightweight tin can. This time, Virgil Grissom duplicated the ballistic arc for the same 15 minutes or so. And when he was recovered and questioned, believe it or not, he hadn't seen any stars either. Isn't that amazing? No stars. Think about it. Down here at the bottom of an atmosphere, filled with dust and clouds and moisture and pollution and all kinds of things, we can still see the stars, or at least the brightest ones, unless you live in L.A. on a smoggy night. The higher up in elevation you go, the better you can see the stars. Yet, these guys with the right stuff could not see the stars. Never mind those who had been up there in aircraft could see the stars. So what's going on here? Can you tell me?
A person of extraordinary achievements on the level of rationality, such as Socrates, or a person of extraordinary attainments on the level of internal spiritual integration, such as Buddha or Confucius. These types of persons, from a broader internal life within themselves, have censored their own intuitions. They have made it unlikely that a ridiculous notion would find acceptance even in themselves, and the certain amount of daydreaming has been filtered out, leaving only certain hard cores of experience, and these in turn supported by a broad contemplation of known facts. Thus, intuition is to a measure dependent upon our understanding of that which is already known, and the extension of this by drawing upon internal resources of judgment, stimulated and directed by imagination.
I don't know how many of you have started to make the connections, because I've given you plenty of hints. I've given you so many hints that it's just absolutely incredible that some of you aren't yelling and screaming and jumping up and down with your own discoveries about these things. The original number of astronauts was 7. The first manned Apollo mission was what? Apollo 7. But they skipped some numbers to make it Apollo 7, didn't they? And which one went to the moon? Apollo 11. How many of you have been with me when we've studied the mysteries and the symbology? When you going to wake up, folks? You know what? You're dozing with your nose in your coffee. I bet it burns. What do you think? Despite it all, NASA's Public Relations Department was equal to the task. They kept grinding out action scripts right on schedule, and if I had known about the mysteries back then, I would have known that if anything was going to happen, it would have happened on Apollo 13. The number of death and resurrection. And that's exactly what happened. The liquid oxygen storage containers on Apollo 13 exploded between here and the moon. And the nation waited breathlessly, glued to their television sets, to watch the astronauts die, hoping, of course, that they wouldn't. And magically, a death mission, just exactly as the number predicts, was resurrected, and it was reborn and brought back to the Earth. Apollo 14 had trouble with the limb while landing on the moon. On Apollo 15, they were drowning in the capsule. And Apollo 16 suffered strange vibrations. Apollo 17 saw the end of the space opera despite NASA's previous plans for many more landings.
Our immediate goal at the moment, and of course we may regard this as a sign of modesty, is that we are going to attack the moon. If we were more optimistic, we might sail right by it to some more distant point. But it is the nearest, and by convenience seems to offer the most immediate possibility. We understand that various individuals are forming groups and making arrangements for early transportation. One advertisement not long ago suggested that it would take reservations for 1970 for lunar trips, but that in the meantime we should try their Bermuda cruise, which is presently available.
Hitzaka. Now this is a little town 45 kilometers east of Lüneburg. And there he spent the next 3 decades with a small court continuing his studies. And he kept up an active correspondence with Johann Valentin Andria and also with Francis Bacon in England, who he knew very well. And then under the pseudonym Gustavus Solanus, he wrote Chess or the King's Game, a book on chess published in 1616, and then Cryptomenetices et Cryptographia, a book on cryptography published in 1624. So this is what I'm showing is the title page of the book, published in 1624. It's published under the pseudonym that the Duke used, pseudonym Gustavus Solanus. It's a cryptic reference to his name. Gustavus anagrams to Augustus, and Solanus is a play on the Greek goddess of the moon, Selene, and also plays upon the name Lüneburg, the lunar or moon castle where the work was printed. And those of you who know Ben Jonson's works, you might know Ben Jonson often refers to the Rosicrucians as the men in the moon. Interesting, isn't it? These links. The moon also is a symbol in Kabbalah of the left-hand side of the tree of life, and it references the holy intelligence or mind, the divine mind or consciousness, which can know the truth. So Kabbalah is associated with that. So men in the moon are Kabbalists. They're studying Kabbalah. They're studying the wisdom in order to get to know it. That's what it really means behind it.